Welcome back to our shed build series here. On the last part, we got done with the wall sheathing. We got all of our upper trim done, and I didn't film it, but I finished up the upper trim on the upper back and front wall there. So now our roof sheathing is ready to go. So grab a roofing nailer and let's get going. What we're going to get started on is we're going to do 7/16 OSB sheathing, and these are 4x8 panels. We're going to be using 1/2 inch steel galvanized plywood clips, and what this is to do is to give us, we're going to put these clips between the sheets, and that gives us a 1/8 inch gap between the sheets. And if you don't gap the sheets, they can expand into each other and create lips and badness. The first piece of sheathing is just dry fit here. Basically we just pushed it up and then turned it from the inside and just let it rest against those two cleats there. I'm trying to just square it up right now. It's flush against the top and it hangs over just a tad right there, so what I'll probably do is just go ahead and screw it in and then just trim a little bit where it hangs over a little bit. It's not completely square, just by 1/8 of an inch. Inside, it doesn't quite line up here because I had to go over, a little bit. So what I'll probably do is just screw in a couple little 2x4 scrap cleats so that I can screw that in and then the next piece in as well. So there might be some cleating I have to do to make that all work. So I'm going to go ahead and get up on the roof and screw it in. By the way, the OSB sheathing has a smooth side and a rough side. I put the smooth side down so the rough side is on top. I don't know if it really matters how you do that, but what I've been told was put the rough side up because it makes it's safer to walk on. You won't tend to slip on it. So I'm going to go ahead and screw that down and we'll get to the next sheet. You can see the first sheet is installed, and as you can see I had to add some scrap 2x4 and just sister it in, and I'll probably have to do that all the way around in order to give enough ledging to this board and the next one. So I'm going to have to do that in a few different places. That's fine. So next thing I'll do is get this smaller 4-foot piece in, and then we're going to go the 8-foot piece starting on this direction going over to here, just because we don't want seams to line up. And yeah, so let's get moving. There's the second piece cut to size, nice and flush, and got a couple of those clips in so it gives us a nice even gap. I'm going to go ahead and screw that down now. Okay, now that the first row is done, I'm going to measure from the peak to the sheet, and I'm going to rip down lengthwise another 8-foot piece of OSB. Instead of starting from this side, I'm going to start from the end over there, and that way my seams don't overlap. Okay, that top sheet is in. Luckily for me, the measurements are pretty simple. This is 24 inches because it's 6 foot total. So just rip down one piece exactly in half, and I can use the other half for the other side. So the end clips are in. There's 3 clips down there to create a nice nice even gap. And I didn't screw it in at the end here. These screws are still lifted, so I'm ready to put in this next piece, and we'll be done with this half of the roof. And then I'll just repeat the same process on the other side. One extra thing is I did have to as well sister in some more wood on that rafter too, because it didn't quite line up. No big deal. Pretty good. Looking good. I'm happy with that. Alright, well, I didn't film the back half of the sheathing, the roof sheathing, but same as the first. Put on my end cleats there, and then through the full 4x8 sheet up. I started at the back, then another 4 foot cut off, and then approximately 2 foot. I think it was a little over 2 foot, and then we just, went from there. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take those cleats off, and we're going to roll out the felt paper on the ground. So I'll show you that. I'm going to roll it out across where I'm going to put it on the ground, cut it about a couple inches long on either side, and then we'll roll that onto the starting at the front here. We'll just roll that up and I'll staple it on. So I'll show you, I'll film a little bit of that, and then we'll get that felt paper done. These are 3/8 inch staples and a hammer stapler I'm going to be using for the felt. Okay, I just marked where I want my vent. I'm going to use one of these cheap roof vents. I'm just going to put one of them in just shy of the middle on the back edge of the roof here. I drilled a screw in the inside right in between the rafters where I knew it wouldn't interfere with the truss or anything. So where I want the center of the vent to be, so that screw is sticking out right now. So now I'm just going to make a square 7" by 7" cut with my circular saw and cut out a little square piece of the roof sheathing, and then that'll be ready for my vent. So I think the way I'm going to do this drip edge, there's so many ways that I saw online. I watched other YouTubers doing this. To do this drip edge, let me see if I can set the camera up. So I think what I'm going to do is, so for the main eaves, right, you have to have an edge, and there's so many different ways to do the edge, where you have your eave or your drip edge on your eave, and then obviously that's going to be tilted up, and then you're going to have your rake edge, which is going up on your, to your roof. So the corners are complicated. I've seen it done a lot of different ways. I think the easiest way to do this is grab a square. I think the easiest way to do this is, so say this is my right hand edge of my, where of my eave there. I'm going to go in about 2 inches. So put my square about 2 inches in and draw a line. About an inch, 2 inches, and maybe a little more. There. And then what I'll do is I'll take, I think I got these right angle snips. What I'll do is I'll take these, hopefully I can see this, and see here's the with the little cleats, this is where it's going to go on the top of the roof, and this is the edge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my snips and snip that little, snip into that, and go around the other side. And then cut it out. Okay, and then what I'm going to do, probably should use some gloves here. I'm going to cut a little bit of a pie cut relief in here. Hopefully you can see that. Really should have my gloves on. And then, now I got that, then I can just fold this in under that. And there's my edge there. And so then my piece that's going to go, so there's my edge there. Then my piece that's going to go up is going to lock into here. I'm going to have to pound it a little bit with a hammer, but that'll lock into there. And see if I can see. Yeah, that'll be my corner. So probably to me, that's the simplest way to do it, and it accomplishes the goal of making sure you've got plenty of overlap and everything overlaps the way it should. I don't know if you can see that, but let me see if I can get you up high enough here. The drip edge is the flashing against the eave is going under the felt, whereas the rake edge going up vertically is over the felt paper. So that's the way I guess you're supposed to do it. And notice that I also, the sun is in my eyes, I can't hardly see anything here, but notice I also cut it off about midway, about 6 inches past midway. So I'm going to bend a corner on the other piece and cut that about 6, and then that'll overlap in the middle there by about 6 inches. The only reason I'm doing that is because these are 12-foot pieces, and I've got, now that I have like 12 foot and change with, extra wood that's been added, so about, maybe 12 feet, 2.5 inches or whatever. So a full 12-foot strip won't come across. So I'm just going to bend the corner, cut it about 6 inches past halfway, do the same on the other side, and it'll overlap right in the middle. there's the overlap there. Sometimes you need to use your hammer to tap it in a little bit, but that should kind of fit tight. Okay, so we're ready for the first course of shingles. Actually, we're ready for the starter course. So what I'm going to do is overhang it by, just a bit, 1.5 inches or so. And then this shingle is a 3-tab asphalt shingle. I put it on upside down, where the actual tabs are upside down. So that's going to be the starter row, and then we'll put our first course over that. Okay, the starter row's up. I'm just going to go ahead and go to the drip edge, but on those sides I'm going to probably go about 1/2, 3/4 of an inch over the drip edge, and then just cut it all from there. But you can see that my first shingle is on, and I am just butting them up against each other, flush with the drip edge. You can see that's why we need the starter shingle, so that our I forget what they call this, the tab slit here is cut, there's a shingle under it. So we're going to nail pretty much where the little glue line is, and I'm pretty much nailing about, kind of a 1/2 inch from the edge, and then above each tab, and a 1/2 inch from the other edge. So it's 3 tab shingle, or there's 2 tabs really, so it's 4 nails. And then I'll just continue this first row, and then the second row is going to just, if I can get it more, I'm sorry, one hand here. So the second row is not going to line up. I'm going to try to line it up, let's see, opposing the tabs, right like this. So what you want is the end of the tab should just be covered, right? So they're lined up if the end of the tab is right where the second course would start. And so that's going to be second, and then we'll keep, going row by row. Okay, so the second course, obviously this is going to hang over because I can't start it over there. Where I have to start it is where this tab is in the middle of the first course tabs. The way you know that is, I don't know if you notice this, but each shingle has these little cuts. If you kind of pry apart this, you'll see these little cuts at the top. So what I did was I found the cut on the first shingle right here, and then I lined up the end of the second course there, and that should make everything perfectly even. And then as long as this shingle ends at the tab here and here, the row should be even. So I'm going to go ahead and nail that in and just keep moving forward. So one mistake I made, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. I wasn't paying attention. This is the edge right here, and I just was pounding in this. You need to be careful, and again, you're only going to do this on the first course. After that, but I should have known that this tab opening would have been here, and not to put the nail here. I should have put it over here. Now, knowing that, it's not the end of the world. I've seen this before. Basically what I'm going to do, well, first of all, it's impregnated into the glue, so that's probably not going to cause a leak right now. But what I'll do is go ahead and make sure I put a little extra roof tar on that. So yeah, and that should seal it in. So again, it's a mistake, but it's not the end of the world. I've seen it before. Just put some tar on it. Just as long as you be careful on your ends here to make sure you're not putting. So notice once I realized that, I knew to make sure that since this tab is kind of close to the edge here, it's about 2 inches away, so it's not too bad. But that you can't put a nail there. So now we're at our ridge cap. Or sorry, ridge cap. I wish. We're only a few rows away. We're at our vent, okay? So I put this row over and cut it out, Now, why I'm doing it now is because our next course, once we put this in, I'm just going to center it over that 7-inch opening, and I'm going to put 2 nails in, one on each side. Now, the reason I'm doing this now, because you could think maybe there's another course to go. Sorry for the shaky work here, camera work here. But my next course, my next row, is going to be basically right here. And so that should overlap real nicely. Sorry, this is a mess. Yeah, but that should overlap real nicely. And so the flange is going to stick out over that. There's going to be no nails in here. And, but everything will be, this will all be covering that. And of course, there'll be a course over the top before we get to our ridge cap that covers this part of the flange. And that's pretty much it. I mean, I may come back over and just lift this up and put some tar under there, some cement, and you know, I can even lift this up a little bit after the fact with a screwdriver and just squeeze a little bit of tar in there. So I'll probably do that. I don't know if it's completely necessary, but anyway, that's how I'm going to do that. All right, next day. Actually, it's the following day. I had to take a 1-day break because it was my birthday and I was so sore. So anyway, something I learned today, or something I learned on the last one, is on the next side I'm going to improve this by not putting these so close. I mean, 1.5 inches to the tab to the end is not too bad, but I've seen worse. But I'm going to try to improve that spacing a little better. This isn't too bad too. On this side it's like a little over 2.5 inches. But yeah, you just, by having that spacing, I'm inviting more nails to show up. And of course, I said I wasn't going to do it again. I did it again, so I got to go fix those up. But anyway, I was going to, with those being as short as they are, I'm going to go ahead and put a bunch of tar under all of them, just to make sure they're glued down very well on the edge. Yeah, so let's get started on the next side. Now, why I didn't do this on the first part of the roof is beyond me. I should know better. I'm a decent tiler, and even though this is my first asphalt shingle roof, applying the same concepts that you do for tile to this makes sense with regard to dry fitting and lining stuff up and making sure you have a better alignment on your edges with this tab. You have to do that with tile too, because you don't want to end up at one corner of the room with a sliver cut of tile, right? So you want to make sure you have a decent amount of tile on your end cuts. So what I did here is, instead of just arbitrarily starting my first course and just going for it like I did on last time, again, I mean, this side, not bad. I mean, this isn't the end of the world. I still got 1.5 inches. And like I said, I'll just add glue and make sure that's good. But might as well learn from my mistakes and do it better. So that's what I'm doing. So what I did was I dry fit the first course, just kind of throw them up there, and then I put the second course up, and of course matching it up to that factory cut here where that's going to center our tabs, right? And made sure that on this side I've got plenty of room. I've got more of like a 4 or 5 inches. Of course, it's going to go a little over the edge, and I'll show you that in a minute, how I ended up doing the cuts for the edges. And then again, you don't have to lay the whole second course down, because you can then go from here, find this factory cut on the other side, just lay up one more shingle tab. Of course, I don't have it lined up, but about right there. And you can see, initially when I did this, I had to push everything over, because this tab here on the second shingle was right about here, which would have been terrible, because I would have gotten like it would have been like a sliver cut here. So by moving the tab over here, I've got plenty of room for my 3/4 to a 1/2 inch overlay cut to clear that tab, and that gives me plenty of room on this course and plenty of room on this course to where I won't have that issue where I have nails or, you know, a tab close to the edge here. So anyway, should have done that on the first time, but again, nothing's too bad on this side to warrant redoing it. I mean, it's definitely passable. I've seen much worse. But anyway, that's the best way to do this. So take the extra time, the extra 15 or 20 minutes to dry fit everything and make sure your tabs on either side on both those 2 rows. Because again, you only have to do 2 rows because then it's just you know, they just alternate. And so as long as you get those first 2 rows set where you need, you're good to go. And then you can, you know, be confident that you're not going to have any issues. Okay. Hopefully I can film this with my shaky hand. So I took a piece of this LP Smart trim here, just a small cut off. This is, you know, a 1x material, 1x2, and so really it's 3/4 of an inch. So I just kind of used that. I put it up against here. That it was too difficult with multiple layers to just score with a knife up against this edge. You might be able to do it. I just wasn't able to. So what we ended up doing is I end up kind of, you know, when they have, like if you look at the other side where I have that like, you know, 8 inches of hangover. So I initially just rough cut all the hangover, just rough cut it all the way up, you know, just eyeballing it that I at least had 2 inches of overhang, right? Just so the shingles wouldn't flop over and I had a straight, you know, they hung out straight. And then, so once I was done just rough cutting it all, and then just kind of bending the shingles back to where they're straight, I held this up against here. And again, it's just right under the drip edge. I just held up. You can use a 1x material or whatever you want. And then what I did was I just, sorry, I can't hold it here, but on the edge here, I could see on the edge here, and I could cut the tile there. And then again, up at the peak, I ran it up there and just overhung it a little bit so I could see the edge of the board and just mark the edge of that tile up there. And then I just ran a chalk line and, you know, snapped the chalk line to get a straight chalk, and then I cut them by hand. And the reason I had to do that is because when you have eventually you have 3, you know, layers, you know, so it's 2 layers and 3, right, where it's all overlapping, and it's just difficult for that blade to get in all 3 and just make a nice score. So, you know, you'd have to kind of score the top and then score the next one and then kind of, you know, score them and pull them off as you go. So anyway, that's how I did that. And I think I got, you know, a pretty decent straight roof edge doing that way. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. Another little bit on nailing here. So when I set, just showing you, like when I set, I just make sure I set the seam right up against it, make sure my gap is real good, obviously. Talked about all that before. When I nail, like I said, I nail right above, I nail right above the glue. That way, the next shingle that covers this is the glue's before the nail. But not too high up, because if you go up here, you might, you know, you want to get as kind of low as you can, but right above the glue. The other thing I'll do is normally, just for efficiency, I'll get the shingle lined up, right? And I'll nail the first 2, the middle ones in, and then I'll go back and do the one on the last shingle and the first one here, and then I'll move my ladder over and then get the next shingle set, and then I'll do, like I said, the middle to line it up, and then do the end one here. And that just makes it a little more efficient when you're working on the first few rows that you're on the ladder. Then of course when you move up to the roof, it doesn't matter. Other thing is, I don't know if you can see, but I'm not burying the roofing nail. Again, these are 1¼ inch galvanized roofing nails. I also bought a small box of 1.5 inch for the ridge cap, just because they need to be a little bit longer to dry through the more layers. But these, I'm not burying them. Notice I'm seating it good, but I'm not just like, you know, just pushing it way into the roofing. And I've heard that, you know, when people like really bang it like deep into the asphalt, it has a tendency to then potentially weaken the asphalt and then can pull off of it. So don't just wail on your nails. Get them seated down where the head is pushing the shingle, but not just buried into it. So yep, First course is almost up.
One of the interesting things I found in the channels that I watch on YouTube are the older generation guys like me versus the millennial guys. The difference is the millennials get their wife involved, and the older generation just seems to be doing it on their own. Just watch any van, camper, road trip, or tiny house build, and you'll see a couple millennials working together on stuff. So we're kind of in that in-between point. She helps out, but I end up doing most of the work.
This is some good cinema right here.
A woman like this.
Mm-hmm. That's why I'm showing it.
God.
Oh, a little progress shot here. Things are going well. A little laddering is probably okay. In other words, where you show it from the side, where you start maybe 2 rows at a time, just so you're not having to move constantly. I wouldn't go more than 2 though, just because it's hard. You might get to the end and kind of forget where you're at or what you've nailed underneath. So yeah, I'm going 2 rows and kind of laddering it, and that way I can get more done without moving. And I'm also making the cutoffs. Every few rows I'll do my rough cutoffs. That just, I'm not, as I just do the rough cutoffs as I go. That way I'm not waiting to the end where I'm super tired. I've been out in the sun for hours and I've got to do all the cutting. So anyway, I'll keep on moving. Always have a piece of plywood up here with you on the roof so you can make your shingle cuts while you're up here without damaging anything. And it also helps you line it up to make a nice straight cut. Once you get high enough up on the roof, you gotta start getting onto the shingles to finish the peak. This is where you need knee pads. Trust me, I didn't do it last time and I'm paying for it. Ugh. Occasionally you get a bad piece right from the factory, so, but I could still use it. I can cut it off here and use it as the end piece. Well, I purchased 5 bags of shingles, just so you guys know, on a 10 by 12 shed, and I was short, so I need at least this row and another row, and then the ridge cap. So I'm gonna buy 1 more bag. I could probably use a lot of those cutoffs for ridge cap, so I'm not as concerned about that. So gotta go to the store, buy another bag, and I'll finish it up. Okay, so for the ridge cap, I'm ready for that. I've got my last layer over the other top of the ridge, so I basically have from one side overlapped over and nailed in, the other side overlapped over and nailed in, and then the ridge cap will be, what I'm going to do is take a straight edge and just cut all of these shingles out. Some of them are scraps. I just made sure that the scraps are actually untouched, where the tab was on the shingle, that's a straight untouched cut. So some of them are scrap and then some will be new shingles, but cut them down to a single tab and then cut away a relief on the asphalt side, the side that's not going to be showing. So I'll show you that. Alright, so I got the edge trimmed on both sides, and sorry, I don't know if my camera works all that good. So the edges are trimmed. I measured the center of this, made sure it's centered on my peak, and I folded it over, and yeah, I've got about 3 done. So just to show you what I'm doing, first of all, I snapped the chalk line because I couldn't see my ridge anymore. This side is a little bit lower than this side, just because I just eyeballed everything. It's not perfect, but not enough for you to notice. So it's a little bit wider, so that's why I snapped that chalk line so I can actually line it, make sure I'm kind of centered. So basically what I'm doing here is I throw this about 1 inch on either side over the glue, just 1 inch on each side of the glue, and just line that up. So I'm one-handed right here, and then 2 nails, one right about here, one right on the other side. You can see just above, again, above the glue line. And yeah, that's it. Just keep going all the way to the end. A couple more feet and I'm done. Okay, here's the last piece that's on there. You see the nails, so can't really do this, but I'm going to put plenty of tar over these nails. And that's the end of the roof cap. I'll go ahead and just tar all those other spots I talked about, and the roof is done. So I already went around and just put some glue under the flashing here. Might put a brick on this just to hold it down, but just a dollop of glue, not all the way across because I think it needs the water needs to be able to drip. But on all the small, anything that flipped up easily, I just put a little dollop of glue of this roofing adhesive sealant, and on the nail heads and everything, and just kind of a little dollop on the edges there to make sure it's glued down. I'm also just walking around on it, and all the nail heads that I saw were exposed. And of course, there's our end cap. Let me get my shadow out of the way. You can see I put a generous amount of tar on that, and yeah, again, just all the edges, just a dollop along those edges. Anything, some places didn't even flip up, so they're already glued down real good. So we got a few more hours of sun and heat, so that's good. I'm just kind of walking around. Not only am I inspecting the roof, but I'm also making sure that all the shingles, get pushed down real well into that glue strip that's there. And I'm already seeing that some of them are actually set in, are hard to pull up. See, I can walk on the ridge cap on either side, make sure it's all set down. Just kind of walk all over it. So there it is, guys. I think I found a new profession, new skill. Roofing. And I'm tanner than I've ever been before.